guys, and welcome to Tech Talk. In today's classroom, we will be learning about how to add a secondary domain controller. So, we have a secondary domain controller that has Windows 2019 server. Its hostname will be DC3 and IP is in your screen. Once we have added to its domain, we will also verify the replication by creating an object in one of the domain controllers and see it being replicated to the other one. So let's get started. So this is our server in which we will install Active Directory and it will be added as a secondary domain controller to my domain. So we have renamed it to be in DC3 and configured its IP as 192.168.1.12. And we first need to check that it has any connectivity with my primary domain controller. So we will do a ping test to our domain controller. And yes, we have the connectivity. So that's good. So now we will proceed and install an Active Directory. So we will go to Manage, Add Roles and Features. We will click on Next. It will ask for role-based or feature-based. We will select role-based, click on Next. It will ask for which server. It's the same server on which we are logged in. It's DC3. So click on Next. And now what feature do you want to install, which role? So we will install Active Directory Domain Services. This is it. It will ask for some extra features that it want to install. We will click on yes, and then we will click on next. In next section, it will ask for if you want to install any additional feature apart from that it's already selecting. Like see, group policy management, it already selected. Remote server administration tools, it already selected. So fine with those selections, we will click on next. And this will give us a formal view of like this is Active Directory, this is the purpose. We will click on next. This will give us a summary of what we're going to install, and we will click on install it. So the feature installation is completed. We will now have to promote this to a domain controller. So we will go to this notification section and we will click on promote this server to a domain. So here we got the option to add domain controller to an existing domain. We will keep that selection because this will be a secondary domain to an already existing domain. So we will enter the name of the domain techtalk.lab and supply the credential. Yes, we need to provide a credential that would be able to add this server into the domain, and that user is administrator. This user is a member of the existing techtalk.lab domain, and its credential, and click on OK. So I'll just pull this thing a bit up. On next, you must supply a user account name. I did supply. Okay, my mistake it was I entered the local administrator user. So I have to use of that domain. So tech talk /administrator. And the password, click on OK. And then we need to click on next. So here we got the domain name system. We have the global catalog. We will have a RODC server later on, and we have not created any site. So it will be kept as default first site, and we will enter the DSRM password now. Click on next. It will request for a DNS delegation. Yes, we need that. Next. and it is asking for which domain controller I want it to replicate from. So I have this, so I want this domain controller, which I am currently installing, to replicate all the databases and all the entries from an existing domain controller, which is DC1. If we do not specify this, it will randomly select the best available domain controller. Or we can also, if we have a constraint that we want to get this replication done only from this particular domain controller, we can manually select it from here. So we will keep this selection and proceed next. And here it's confirming the paths for the database log folders and everything. We will keep default, click on next. It will give a brief summary, everything is fine. And we will click on next. So it will do a prerequisite check first, and then it will proceed to install. So pre-check is completed and we will proceed to install. So it will take some time. We will pause this video here and we'll be back once the installation is completed. So we are back from the reboot after it got installed. So now we should see, yes, now see it has been joined to the domain. So we will log in and we will verify that if replication is happening properly. So to test that, what we will do while we are logging on, we can go to one of our DC existing server, DC1, and we will log in there. And we will open our Active Directory users and computers. Snap in. And we will go to domain controllers and should see the domain DC3 got added. Yes, it got added as a domain controller here. Now to check replication between that. So we'll also log into our DC3 server. It's taking some time to load because I have set relatively low RAM settings in this virtual machine. Okay, so here we will go to tools and we will open Active Directory users and computers. We should be able to see the same detail as we saw in DC1. Now what we will do here, we will create one object in any of the OUs and we would see if that is being replicated to my DC1. So here I will go to the main controllers and see DC3, DC1 are listed. So what I will do to create replication, I will go to Active Directory sites and services first. Here, if we expand the sites, we will see default first site name, servers, and DC1, DC2, DC3. So DC2 is another server. It has been deconfigured right now. So here we expand NTDC and we want to check replicate configuration from the selected DC. So there are two options. I can replicate now. Like by default, there is a selection like after every minutes or after every seconds replication will happen. We can force this replication like this. We can just do replicate configuration from the selected DC. Active Directory has replicated connection and we will see from here that see two replication paths has been created. Like it observed that there are two paths in this domain DC2 and DC1, so it automatically created two paths. So I just want to do this replication first. Replication now. Done. So sites are configured by default. So once this is configured and replication is happening, we can verify if replication is actually happening by going on to Active Directory users and computers, and we can just create a new OU. Like we can create any object and then we will see if that object is also visible from DC1 domain controller. So let's create a new say new user and let it name as test user with the user as its logon name. Click on next. Let's give it a password. We will uncheck change password at next logon and click on next. Finish, and the user should be created in my domain controller. See, a test user has been created. If you do a refresh, you can see. So now we will go back to our DC1 and we will do a refresh. It didn't create, it's not showing up. So what to do? Let's go back to DC2 again. Let's open the sites and services. Let's do a replication. So replication configuration to the selected DC. So let's do this replication. So it's replicated now. Now let's go back to DC1, do a refresh here. It's still not visible. Something is definitely amiss. And see, while after refreshing, it did replicate the user. Similarly, if we just delete this user from here, or let us say we create another user here, user test user 2, and we do not want to specify any last name. Let us keep a very generic password, and there must be a typo here. Okay, click on next and finish. So we will wait for some seconds, few seconds, and okay, there are few additional signs that have also been placed. So we will refresh this and we will now go back to our secondary domain controller and we will do a refresh and see this thing. Now test2 is also replicated. So this means that replication is working fine, and this is my secondary domain controller configured properly. So that's that. If you have any doubts or suggestions for us, do bombard or mention that in the comment section. If you want us to cover certain topics, also mention that. And definitely subscribe to Tech Talk. Have a great evening. Happy learning. Bye bye.